Illusion of Gaia, also known in Europe and Australia as Illusion of Time, is an action role-playing game that was released in September 1st, 1994 for the Super NES. You take on the role of Will, a young lad who not only plays the flute but also happens to have a psychic power to boot. Using his telekinetic abilities, he can make objects suddenly take off a life of their own, which impresses his friends Lance, Eric, and Seth, who sit in awe watching him perform his trick. Unfortunately for poor Will, his parents suffered a terrible fate in the Tower of Babel over a year and a half ago, leaving him to reside with only his possible guardians, his grandparents. Upon returning home from performing from his friends again one evening, he discovers that there is an unusual meal waiting by a strange girl and her pig. She turns out the Princess Cara. Her pig is Hamlet. Her father, King Edward, has gone crazy, locks Will up, and the pig rescues him. He meets up with Lily, who has the ability to transform into a flower, and so begins a strange and unusual journey. There have been many wonderful RPGs out on the Super Nintendo, and most of the third generation were so generous they still had head and shoulders above several PS1 and GBA games on the market. However, Illusion of Gaia was second generation, and just at the time when Quintet was starting to get its stride on the 16-bit home console. Therefore, as with Secret of Mana from Squaresoft that was similar position, its time was striking, where nowadays it's still very pleasant to see, but the lack of variety and overall strength to the visuals is somewhat disappointing. There are still pretty colorful backgrounds offered up, with large characters with nice amounts of detail to them, complete with standard smooth animation, yet there is still a bit of repetition where it comes to houses and dungeons. With nothing too new and spectacular bringing towards your way, thankfully the technical side makes up for this, with only a little slowdown throughout the massive boss encounters that sometimes fill a majority of the screen. After being spot by Terranigma, it is certainly jarring to go back to its prequel. The musical side of matters definitely stands out the test of time far better than pleasant graphics. With tunes that still remain in my head today, about a decade after its original release, going back to revisit the whole experience was certainly a pleasure. The Pampine theme seems to be running feature, from the gentle flowing town tunes to little ditties that pop up throughout the game. Then there is a fantasy futuristic piece that comes across when you face a special otherworldly female statue, where you save your current protagonist, and the dungeons that set the mood perfectly. While many have criticized Enix for its graphically quality over the years, with Squaresoft being the master of the department, the musical scores that practically every Enix title has been of the highest, with even the sound effects are being particularly strong for a Super Nintendo game of all time. As usual, a good stereo output is necessary to appreciate the atmosphere to its fullest. One aspect of Enix games that seems to be constant, other than the stellar musical work, is that the gameplay. Back in the days of Dragon Quest and the old 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System, right through its works of Squaresoft and the new Square Enix on Sony's PlayStation 2, the company has nearly perfect track record when it comes to crafting enjoyable adventures that are both adequate length and keeps player entertained until the final credits. Illusion of Gaia is no different, from the humble beginnings wandering around and entertaining your friends with your telekinetic and physical abilities. The control of Will is natural and without problem. Holding either the shoulder button twirls your stick and can draw items towards you. Double tapping on the directional pad leads you to dashing through a nice pace, and you can also use your stick to jab away repeatedly to ward off any oncoming danger. Battling takes place in real time, hence the game's depiction as an action RPG similar to Zelda series. Will can run around avoiding enemies and quickly beating his opponent when he feels the timing is right. Also occurring to Link's adventure is that there is no experience points, with bonuses and statistics being deployed when all the enemies are cleared in one area. And you have to do this in the first time, as you do not receive extras if you leave and return to clear the remaining mess. Strange for an RPG as well as that there are lives, 9 of which can be collected, with 1 granted per 100 red gems found. But hey, at least there is no manual jumping to be found at all. But jumping is involved in some puzzles, with Will being able to jump over small areas when dashing and sliding underneath things, and then transformation with redness and certain points in the game, changing into a knight called Freedan to attack at distances further than usual, and Shadow, a metal blue demon who can diffuse through small floor surfaces. These puzzles are often required backtracking but it's never too tedious that the dungeons are massively expanded. The controls, like I said, are nice and smooth. This is a family model title that seems to have suffered only the lands of time that possession of an RPG feel. It is by no means completely lacking in the playability though. At the time of the release, it was a very addictive little RPG, and it still is now today. Except, I would probably deem it as an RPG light. Pure and simple because of the fact that Enix and Quinten left out most of mainstay RPG aspects that increase the length of the adventure. No leveling up, no currency, no shopping required at all items are available via treasure chests, and there are no certainly side quests along the way. This is countered, though, by the fact that Enix controls it difficult throughout. There is no chance to build your levels up to extend where you can breeze through, and neither they can be dropped and completely unfair battle, which proves to be a positive matter and prevents the frustration associated with some RPGs. Then there are elements of strategy required due to the health item shortages. How often should you use them? Things like this help lengthen, but it can probably be a short game. Illusion of Gaia is a great RPG for people that can't seem to get into them, like myself. This is one that you should try out.